Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Social/Physical Distancing BC Poly Hotstove. I'm Maclean K, the editor-in-chief of the Orca. I'm here in Orca World headquarters, which is my dining room table. And I am joined live and not in person by...
Jordan Bateman, VP Communications for the Independent Contractors and Businesses Association. And the mighty ICPA has spread throughout the Lower Mainland and Prince George. I am here in Langley, British Columbia, Canada. So we're safely, we're a Salish Sea and at least like 25-minute drives on either end apart.
Yeah, I mean, if that's not enough distancing, then we're...
Exactly. And I'd like to, first of all, just before we get started, Maclean, shout out to our friends at the Unspun podcast who,
yes, I
feel like the last episode they were a little down. They were kind of didn't have the same crackle of fun and joyfulness. I'm going to start searching for a happy story to send to underscore to add into the mix because they I'm depressed enough. I listen to my Unspun for them to make me feel better about the world.
They need to start making fun of someone. There's got to be some communication staffer at City of Vancouver.
Yes. Well, just think of the relief we could give taxpayers if we didn't have 43 communication staffers at the City of Vancouver. There you go. Yeah, I don't even think they mentioned the 43. You're right. Oh my God. Up is down, left is right. This is truly the worst timeline.
If you had April 1st when the pandemic would get to Jordan, you can cash in your shit.
Okay, well, we can get into it. It actually got to me yesterday at about 3:15 p.m. when our beloved Dr. Bonnie, holding court as per usual, kind of got out there. And, the media, now that the curve is sort of flattened, by the way, first things first, on the communication side, I much prefer flatten the curve to the Canadian government's stupid plank the curve.
Yeah, I don't get that at all.
That's stupid. Flatten the curve. We get it. Okay.
Yeah.
So kudos to Dr. Bonnie for never saying plank the curve. Anyways, she was asked like, how long is this going to go on for? Like I'm on day 17 here at home. Like how long is this happening? And her answer was less than happy. She basically said into summer, which she later backtracked into deep into June.
Yeah.
That was kind of demoralizing, Maclean.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Tomorrow will be 3 weeks that we've been home. So and we're in a condo.
Yes. But with a 3-year-old or 4-year-old.
5-year-old.
5-year-old. Oh, well, that's much better.
It's a good thing he's not watching. He would be very upset. He's, we're handling it okay. He misses his friends. That's the part that gets to me is that like we entertain him and engage him and stimulate him as best we can. And I think we're doing an okay job. But like once in a while, I think we even talked about this last week. He'll ask to FaceTime with one of his friends and they'll just literally, they don't even talk. They just make faces at each other.
Yeah.
It's because it's what they're not getting at home, right? Like it's, I can only dad and mom can only be so silly.
Yeah.
for so long.
My wife and I were out for a walk last night. So lately we've been, forcing the children to clean up after supper and Jenny and me and the dog go for a walk. So yeah, it's not bad. But we're talking about only child families, and that must be tough because we're lucky. I mean, Indy's almost 17 and Danica is 14 and Jack is 10, and they kind of like take turns playing with each other and entertaining each other and giggling and laughing. But an only child would be difficult because you don't have that built-in playmate.
Yeah, it is. There are a lot of times when he just says I'm bored and I have no one to play with, and it's like, oh God, right in the heart.
Both those things are true. Yeah, both those things are true.
It's right. I mean, all you can say is you're right. I'm sorry, and I will play. I'll take a 10-minute wrestling break with you, but then I have to get back.
Yeah.
And these are small concerns.
Yeah.
Given
everyone's healthy,
and everyone is duplicating. I mean, this conversation that we're having is being duplicated literally across the world.
Yeah.
So it's just. It's not easy.
I do think we're being robbed of certain things. So, like, wouldn't you love a Richard Zussman, Lisa Eusta podcast? Like, if ever there's time, I know NW are global and is the arch rival of News 1130, and they go out at hammer and tongs and like the big dog versus the news. I get that, but guys, can we come together? I think we need a Richard and Lisa home life podcast, because Richard asks, first of all, the greatest questions of Dr. Bonnie, which make me wonder what's going on over there. And then second of all, like Lisa's like post kind of like talk about a roller coaster of emotion. Like I love her Twitter account, because right now I'm like, she speaks for me. Like sometimes angry, sometimes bitter, sometimes like really like, hey, I'm enjoying this time at home, but then kind of converting back. So anyways, I appreciate that. I do think that the platforms need to cut a deal. Let's cut a deal and have those two podcasting together.
Well, we're seeing a lot of interest. Did you see the news today about Post Media? Did you see this?
Yes.
You probably didn't because you've been busy. But
no, Mary Brown's Chicken. Yeah.
That's right. So I was just before we went on air, I was tweeting at Rob Shaw saying I'm actually looking forward to the first time you get accused of being in the pocket of Big Chicken, because we both know that's going to happen on Twitter.
And for the French, Le Grand Poulet. No, but let me just say this. Mary Brown's, delicious chicken, fantastic gravy and biscuits. There's one nearby in Clayton here in Surrey. Clayton is a part of Surrey that wants to pretend it's in Langley, but it's actually in Surrey. But you may know it from having not enough school classrooms and too many portables. But anyways, incredible chicken. But what I'm really missing, and what I'm going to actually talk to the kids about, is we got to do a takeout from Popeye's Chicken down in Langley City. Oh man, the Popeye's Chicken sandwich, believe the hype, people. It's delicious.
Really? I've never even tasted it.
It's outstanding. It's outstanding. But I want to talk about another kind of chicken, if I may.
Good stuff.
Maclean, I need to rant. And,
let's do
it. We're recording this about 2 hours after Bill Morneau bothered to show up for a press conference, 25 minutes late. That press conference he punted from the day before to talk about the emergency wage subsidy. And if you're in small business and you were hoping for the white knight to come and save you, it's going to get there 6 weeks late. And I fear that we have just triggered millions of layoffs across Canada. So the plan essentially is, if you can prove that your business is down 75% or down 30% revenue month over month, so March 2020 to March 2019, and then reapply in April 2020 to April 20, and May 2020 to May 2019. If you're down 25% or 30% in those, as far as revenue goes, you can apply for up to 75% of wages up to $58,000 per head for your staff. So essentially you can get like $850 a week per staff member. But here's the problem. At a time where we need speed, at a time where government has shuttered all of these businesses, and look, small business owners get it, public health comes first, but government has made this decision. This is not an act of God. This is not, a decision a business owner made. This is not a flaw of a bad business owner, like didn't have enough money in his business plan for this thing. No, this is government made the decision to pull the plug on essentially 2/3 of the economy. You've got to be faster than this. Like 6 weeks is a death sentence for hundreds, maybe thousands of small businesses across this country. And I'm just absolutely puzzled and angry and frustrated that the federal government has not found a way to expedite these helps. What every business that hasn't started in the last 6 months, what they made. What they made last year. Just deposit into their CRA accounts a percentage of their revenue from last year, or find out what their payrolls are and percentage of payroll. Like, who cares if some thriving businesses right now get money? We can tax that back from them next year, right? But instead, you're going to make more paperwork every month and delay it for 6 weeks. The portal isn't even open. We were promised details. They don't have any details. It just is. It is so frustrating. And already we're getting emails from construction companies, which are an essential service, which are trying to go on, although some of them have been paralyzed by workers not wanting to come to work and they have that right and that choice.
Absolutely.
And they're desperate, and I just my heart breaks for these small business owners, because they didn't do anything wrong. They did nothing wrong, and they're going to go bankrupt. They're going to dissolve, and it's just we have Trudeau this morning. His press conference, he segued into this lecture about how it's on all of us. Each of you must do your part. In that breathy Trudeau voice that just, it can be so condescending. Well, no offense, Mr. Prime Minister, but it's not all on me. a lot of it's on you. You didn't close the border in time. You still have flights coming in from hotspots. You raised the friggin' carbon tax today. You gave MPs a raise today. You are taking 6 weeks to roll out a wage subsidy program. You have these programs, EI and this emergency response benefit, that is so complicated and so intertwined that you need multiple screens and HTML pictures to tell you which one to apply for. That ain't on me. It ain't on me that you didn't have enough PPE in reserve. It ain't on me that you didn't have enough, guts to do this stuff earlier. That's on you. And Maclean, like it drives me crazy. Well, we have a minister of middle class prosperity, for example. We have there's not going to be a middle class after this, right? Like, there's going to be the employed class and the unemployed class. Like those are the classes now. So
you mentioned this is the smallest of details of the list you just mentioned, but you mentioned the pay raise for MPs. Interesting contrast what happened here in BC, where they took I think they scheduled a LAMC meeting virtually. I think they met for 11 minutes and literally just said this is not a good idea right now.
No.
And waived it, and it took less than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You're telling me that couldn't have happened at the federal level or something similar? I am a little mystified by the symbolism there.
Exactly. And I don't want to let Horgan off the hook here either, because in some ways he's been very helpful. In other ways, you look at the business package for the provincial benefits for employers. None of this is money. It's all deferrals. Well, you don't need to pay your employee health tax until June. You don't need to pay PST until June. June is coming. Like, and now got your public health officer and your minister of health saying we're locked up through until the summer. Where are these businesses going to get this money?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's going to be a big reckoning in June where it's going to get much worse unless they change gears again. Part of me hopes that these programs were designed on the assumption that come May 1st things would start to come back to normal, but that's not the world we're going to be living in. Apparently, I mean, I think everyone's best case scenario rather is that maybe Canada Day, maybe,
and it'll be factored in. You know, like she went hard yesterday after churches, for example, and weddings and funerals, and like, you can change practices, right? Like you can still do church services and space people out. You can still do outdoor church. Like there's things you can do, like especially in the summer. The theory is it's going to get hot and maybe this virus won't spread as much. I don't know. Like it's so hard, and Dix must lay awake at night thinking about this. Is you're punting all these people, and we call them elective surgeries, but that just means they're not.
Just means they're scheduled.
Dire. Yeah.
That's all it means is and he's said this. It really just means they're scheduled. It doesn't mean not necessary.
No, like elective surgery in our mind is like, oh, like I'm getting a boob job. Like no.
Yeah.
No, they're not elective. Like that is, but that's not what we're talking about. This is like I need a hip replacement. Yeah. A knee replacement. I need a scope. I need all that kind of stuff. And there's going to be a human cost to all this too, right? Oh, yeah. And you think of the mental health side. We've done so much work in this province and in this country, in society on mental health the past few years, and you're just spooling that all away. Friends of ours from church had a baby just a couple of days ago. Wow. And what a different experience for them than for the rest of us. Like grandma and grandpa aren't coming to hold that baby, and their dear friends, we're acquaintances, we're not close friends, but their dear friends aren't coming to hold that baby. And this, celebration, you're dropping off food, but you drop off food and, you don't blame them if they want, like you drop off food with like a little Clorox wipe so they can wipe the thing, right? Like this is a very different kind of experience right now. And I do wonder about the mental health aspect of it. I wonder about the physical health. How sustainable is this? Everyone defaults to the Trump. Oh, you got, he'll doom a million people to death in order to save the economy. No, it's not like that. It's, there is a mental health thing about going to work, having routine, all those things. So I don't know, Maclean. It's this is why I want Unspun to cheer me up this week.
You're not wrong. Yeah, I think the mental health aspect is going to be one we're going to start paying a lot more attention to, because it has been. I'm on the long end of people who have been stuck at home at 3 weeks tomorrow, and 3 weeks is not a short amount of time, but it's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
If we're all doing this for a few more months, you're going to see some people start to go squirrely, and I don't mean to be dismissive. I mean, there's going to be. Think about someone who's living alone, in an apartment. oh my God, someone who's just moved out from home for the first time. They might be, 18, 19, 20 years old, and maybe they moved across the country for a job and they don't have a support base. Like, how are they doing? I think about these people because I have been one of them. And had this pandemic happened at a different stage in my life, I'm not sure how well I would have been able to cope, just given my situation at the time.
Yeah. See, I just moved from my parents' house and when I got married. So, but let me tell you, Maclean, wouldn't be any better being locked up with them.
No, well, that's another good point.
Yeah. There are parts of this life that remind me a little bit of my childhood, right? Like the idea that you have supper at home every night.
Yeah.
And like we're very much a restaurant takeout society now. I wasn't like that when I was growing up in the early 80s. Like it was supper every night. Mom's terrible meatloaf once a week. My poor mom. She never loved cooking, and it showed. And my dad was a commuter, so he would come home and like show up at 5:55 and supper's at 6, right? Like,
oh man.
It is that kind of feel, right? Like those are the kind of things you're like, and it's a little bit like toddler life for us too, where the kids don't have activities of their own. Like we're not driving them. Like Jack right now should be playing 3-on-3 hockey once a week and baseball 3 to 4 times a week. Danica would have softball 3 times a week. Indy would have a bunch of her student council and humanitarian club and other leadership things several times a week. Plus, some church stuff. Like that's a lot of activities.
Yeah. They're
all like, now it's like, well, okay, so what are we doing tonight? Same thing we do every night, Binky. Like, we're taking over the world.
I hear that. I don't know. What let's try and lighten this a little. Let's
look. Okay, I want to talk about the 7 p.m.
pot Actually, that's where I wanted to go next too.
So a few days ago, last week, we went out at 7 onto our deck, and we were the only ones banging our pots. That was fine. We live in Langley, in a suburb. Yeah. But then Monday, I was like, Jack, it's 6:35. Let's go out there. So it was just him and I. And really, it's like give him a pot and a pan and let him bang it. Partly, he's 10, so it's good to get that kind of loudness and aggression out. Well, I'm like 5, 4, 3, 2. I get to 1, and someone has an air horn somewhere in the neighborhood, and they shoot off the air horn. And all of a sudden, it was like the whole neighborhood was shot out of a rocket. Like we've been waiting all weekend to do this. I don't know what was different between Friday and that day. People are yelling and screaming, car alarms going off. There's banging, firecrackers. like we're miles from the nearest healthcare. Like
we had a very similar experience with the first time we did it. I even wrote a blog about this where I told Ian, you're going to get to make some noise. It's going to be great. And we're in a condo on the 3rd floor, and we can look down on our neighbors behind us on their decks and that. And we went out to start banging noise, and 2 of the houses had people out on their balconies just like sitting around eating dinner. and we're so all of a sudden there's a 5-year-old banging pots, and they're just staring at us like, what are you doing?
Check out Jody's middle this week.
And so I was very like, oh, cool, this sucks. I guess we're not doing this in this part of Victoria. And then a couple nights ago we tried again, and it's exactly what you just described. It was loud and it was wonderful. And that very same neighbor who looked at us, and they weren't being mean or anything, they literally just looked up and said, what are you doing? It was, and if you don't know, fair enough. And at this time they were out with pots and pans banging, and we had a quick grin at each other, and it felt really good.
Okay, so you know what? I have a theory on this, right? I think it shows us what took so long to get social distancing to actually happen. Remember the first week, then there were all those pictures of people at the beach and nonsense like that.
Yep.
I just don't think information has spread fast enough yet. And it is a sign, and look at me, I'm a social media guy, but it is a sign of how important the mainstream media is, and how important social media as far as messaging person to person is. And, it took time for people to realize what was going on, right? It took, we're like, 0 plus 2 weeks or so from what was happening in around St. Paul's Hospital, but it's spreading, and every night more and more people join in. And last night we were out for a walk at 7, and we had forgotten about it and like jumped out of our skins when the car alarm started going off right next to us, and like, oh yeah, 7, yeah, oh yeah. So I do think it shows how information in this day and age is spreading, like, which probably is a reason why you're seeing a lot more of those government ads on physical distancing and those things now.
Yeah, and that's
I got a mail out from the government of Canada on how to wash my hands.
Really?
Yeah, bulk mailer.
I did not.
It wasn't great.
We're only checking our mail like once a week, so I may have gotten it. I haven't
Now
looked
you have a
yet.
reason to go, Maclean. Now you have a reason to go.
I have to
tax
leave to
dollars
go
are-
get our mail, so it's a whole thing.
Your tax dollars at work right there.
Can we talk about how different the culture has been? I mean, just online and politically here versus what we're seeing in Alberta.
Yeah. The Notley government the Notley opposition has not really figured out how to cooperate while still making points. The Kenney government, he's been great. I think their public health officer's been outstanding, like
Yes.
Dr. Henry Love is outstanding.
Yep.
Their health minister, though, Maclean, a little thin-skinned.
Yeah, and it's I was introduced to this story by what happened when he went to somebody he knew because they had tweeted some memes or something at his wife, the health minister's wife, and went to his door to berate him. Which, I mean, that was my introduction to the story. And you go, oh my God, that's inexcusable, and it's still inexcusable. But then when you read a little deeper and you see that the harassment that had been directed not just to the Minister of Health, which is still not cool, but to his wife, it's just, I mean, he should not have snapped. And there isn't even a but here. It's inexcusable. But the fact that the politics hasn't really stopped there, it's not that the point that I would urge to the Alberta NDP is you can still criticize, you can still make points, you can still say, hey, I think you should do this instead of this. Yeah, that is literally your job. But I mean, take a page from the opposition here, both opposition parties, and I know one of them is opposition with an asterisk, but still, it's been different. You can still say, hey, you guys made a mistake about this, and you should do this, and have you thought of this? Mm-hmm. But you can do it in a way that's not, angry and personal and bitter. And, we were just talking about, the mental health challenges that are going to emerge from this. Please don't make it worse by, tweeting, wishing death or illness on somebody or somebody's wife or children.
Yeah.
Just take a walk. Find another way to make your point.
Exactly. It's, the example I think of on this is Bo and Ma. So Bo and Ma puts together a sheet of all the different aids and helps that have been announced by all the different levels of government. Yeah. It's like a 3-page document, which shows you just how stupid and complicated everything is. But you can tell she put hours and hours into it because I've tried doing this for construction and it takes a lot of time but this is what she did. Bo and Ma, I would say bottom third as far as popular among BC Liberal MLAs. I think I'm being charitable there. They don't really love her. She's
I see what you're saying. And okay, yeah.
They don't particularly like her. They don't like her social media.
That's probably accurate.
They didn't like that time she sucked up to Ralph Sultan and wished him happy birthday for his 2,737th birthday or whatever it was. Methuselah. I love you, Ralphie. But they don't. But to their credit, some of them linked to that document. Yeah. Some even thanked her for putting it together. And they recognized that was a lot of work. And it was like, this is wartime, right? This is, Team BC. We got to figure out what to do. And if this is going to help my constituents, I'm going to link to that for sure. And so I think that kind of gives you a difference. Like, I just can't imagine anyone in the Notley NDP linking to anything of any, anything from a Kenney government person.
Yeah, and the other thing I would tell Rachel Notley specifically is because we're all comparing this pandemic to a war effort, and for reasons that are obvious. In the 1945 election in the UK, Labour beat the Conservatives. Winston Churchill, the hero of the war, et cetera, and so forth. And part of the reason that happened was, Labour had served in a joint unity government and made a point of, really restricting themselves to constructive criticism. And still, if you look back, some pretty strong criticism, but in a very different way because they read the room.
Yes.
And then after the war had been won or nearly won, they were well positioned when people thought, well, they need a different voice now. Winston won us the war, but now we need someone to win us the peace, et cetera, and so forth. That is the model that I would tell all opposition parties across the country to follow. You have to set yourself up to be liked after it. You don't want people looking at you, hectoring and making personal attacks and saying, really?
Yeah. No, exactly.
Now? Yeah. So
exactly. It's the difference. It's why you didn't see Andrew Wilkinson come out last night or today and respond to the Premier's speech last night.
That's right.
And look, I don't know why Horgan felt like he needed to make that speech last night. I don't know if there was an announcement plan that got scrapped, or like state of emergency extending 2 weeks. Who cares? Like, we're all in the same emergency. That didn't even occur to the average human. And, it was very much a cheerleading speech. Could have happened yesterday. Could have happened the day before. Yeah, it could happen today. Yeah, tomorrow. Yeah, it could have happened anytime. And Horgan's got to be careful he doesn't, shoot that shot too many times, because, eventually it loses its power. At the same time, you're seeing Doug Ford and Mario Cuomo every day, and you're seeing Trudeau every day. And I think there's a little bit of like political itch in there, like, oh, I got to get out there and make sure that, people remember I'm in charge, and,
and not Adrian Dix.
It's not just Adrian Dix who's in charge. But, you didn't see Wilkinson criticize. And I know Wilkinson tonight has a town hall meeting with BC Liberal members. But I can't imagine a scenario where he's going to come out and shred the premier. Like, this is, unprecedented times. And he knows that, this is the kind of thing that's going to happen. I think we also know that when this ends, there'll be lots of scrutiny. There'll be lots of discussion. Why did it take us so long to close borders? What can we learn for next time? There'll be a full inquiry. Like, it'll go beyond just, it'll be huge. It'll be a quite a bit. And, that's when you get to hold Horgan to account. Did he do enough? Do you feel like, if half the country, if half the province is out of a job or in massive debt, Horgan's not going to win. Like, that's what will happen. So you just have to kind of let that all happen.
Just because you're going to focus now on getting everyone out of the burning building doesn't mean you can't investigate how the fire started afterwards.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So, and to that end, like today, Horgan was at the BC Hydro announcement with Bruce Ralston much like us, across the Salish Sea, and announced a 1% reduction in hydro rates. Well, like, whoop-de-doo, 1%. I mean, I guess if you're a massive industrial user.
Yeah, fair enough. But to you and me, it's and speaking of you and me, and probably everyone else in this province, our hydro bills are going to be pretty massive next time you see them. You're home all the time. Your Wi-Fi is running all the time.
Yep.
Cable, lights on that aren't on. Yep. I'm sitting underneath lights that are never on at 1:30 on a Wednesday afternoon.
Your dishwasher.
Like,
our dishwasher is running twice a day. Like, because we just create so many dishes. Like, there's so many of us.
Yeah.
So, it's laundry's about the same. You're not getting any. Maybe it's even a little less. Okay, so there's that. I want to talk about two ideas I have, because I do think we should start talking about a little bit about like what this all means. Mm-hmm. The first idea I have is this. At some point, we got to talk about post-disaster recovery.
Yes.
And we got to talk about like what the economics look like, what government's role is going to be, how do we pay down that debt? And I have a name I'd like to submit to you as someone who should be, who, if Horgan was crafty, would put in charge of not a commission, but like a group of MLAs, a working group to come up with suggestions. Gordon Campbell.
That would take a significant amount of pride being swallowed on behalf of the premier. But I am
on behalf of both premiers. I think it would take a very good point. But like, here's why I think Horgan and Dix and Ralston and Carol James and Rob Fleming and whoever else is in the inner circle there, they are all consumed with one thing, like the immediate. How do we survive this crisis? Like, it's health. Like, how do we survive this? You do need someone to kind of step back and take the bigger picture, like with making suggestions that aren't binding, but to like say, like, this is where we can go from here. Like, this is how we pivot away from, this is how we bring back a film industry that isn't reliant on, close to $1 billion in film subsidies. This is how we bring back tourism. This is how we can we bring it back? What does it look like in that new world? And, for all his, flaws, and there are many, Gordon Campbell has, he's got a brain for that. And he's sat in that chair during rough times. Yeah. He's made dumb pronouncements without them being well researched, HST. But he could sit there and he could offer this kind of advice in a way that, and maybe it's him and Dan Miller, or him and Glenn Clark. Like maybe it's a co-chaired thing. But find someone outside that NDP circle, someone who can comment responsibly on these things. I just think that there's an opportunity there, and it's, maybe it's not a formal paper. Maybe they're out there, doing Zoom meetings with stakeholders and collecting ideas. Like, how do we pivot out of this? That would be one. And to that end, I'm going to suggest one major change I think we'll see going forward in the post-COVID world, this post-lockdown world. My suspicion is you will see, this is no, it's going to sound like a slight on current MLAs, but what the hell? You're going to see a far greater caliber of candidate come forward for future elections. And whether it's for mayor, for council, for MLA, for MP, for school trustee. Because I think what this is doing is it's reminding people, especially in the private sector, of just how important those political jobs are. Like a year ago, you're kind of kicking around like, what could the BC Liberals put into their platform that would be fresh and new and exciting and, shiny, right? And, you're really nibbling around the edges.
Yeah,
it's
true.
Now you're at the point where it's just like, we need the smart people in government, the people who knew what it was like to lay off someone, like the ones who had to agonize over government slow reaction. Like those are the kind of people we need to start bringing in. I think you're going to see that difference in caliber of people run next time. It's just, maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe they'll all be busy rebuilding businesses, but I don't know. I just think that public service will be ingrained in those of us who or vast majority of us will survive this. So those of us who kind of work through this and live through this, it's going to be embedded in a way that it hasn't been maybe since the World War and what families lost then. I don't know if I'm still trying to articulate that thought in my mind. Like I'm still trying to crystallize it, but it's one of the things that, well, like I'll talk personal experience. I was a township councillor for 2 terms. I retired from politics in 2011 to join the Taxpayers Federation. So no one's marked my name on a ballot for 12 years. And frankly, didn't really miss it. Haven't missed it.
I've teased you about this on a number of occasions.
Yeah. And Coleman was retiring. Yeah. And there's this, there's really only one other person from Langley that, people outside Langley know in the BC political circle. So, Jordan's going to run. He wants that seat. And the truth is, like, I really don't. Like, I love ICBA. I love our Hotstoves, Maclean, more than anything. But, like, this is, like, I'm happy. Doing well, the kids are great, the lifestyle, all that stuff. But I do think that, after this, in my dark moments walking around the neighborhood, I think to myself, like, this is why you do need good people there. And I'm not saying I'm better than these guys, but in your mind, you're like, this is why this is important. This is why you need to, still contribute in some sort of way. Because it's easy, like any Cocker Spaniel can be on a council during good times, right? But it's during these hard times where you need the out of the box thinkers, the people who are willing to work fast. And corollary to that, I think that the way we work will change. There'll be a lot more of this video stuff. There'll be a lot more people working from remote offices, and that I think will change the way the legislature works. You're not going to need to be in the provincial legislature for 26 weeks a year.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think the remote working is going to become more prevalent, and it'll make the climate change crowd happy because it's a lot less travel. But it'll also make I think prospective candidates happy. I mean, it's one thing I live in Victoria. I can spit and hit the legislature from here. It's a relatively easy drive.
But I mean, Dr. Mine doesn't like us to spit anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. But imagine coming in from Revelstoke, where you're driving into Calgary and flying from Calgary to and hoping to find a direct flight to Victoria. They do exist, but they're few and far between. It's you've got to be really dedicated to do that. I also think, as a slight spinoff from what you just said, what I'm hoping is that another part of the reason that we're having a hard time, and by we I mean society, having a harder time recruiting really great candidates, is it's just not worth the slings and arrows, the insane social media scrutiny, we were just talking about someone's wife being subjected to abuse. I mean, unfortunately that's not all that uncommon anymore. I hope that this sort of collective spirit we're generating here kind of spins off, and we have less tolerance for that. We're not just going to roll our eyes and be like, "Oh, that's just partisan. That's just an anonymous troll on Facebook or Twitter." I mean, I think that stuff has to stop, and I hope that this can help us get there.
Yeah. I think you're right. Like, I think we're headed that way. So we'll see. I mean, who knows? Maybe this wraps up in July. We all get vaccinated, and we forget this is just one of those things that you nudge the kids every year when the Facebook memories pop up, right? Like, Maybe it's just that, but
And
I don't know.
and in
It
the back
feels
of
it feels society changing.
And in the back of my head, I'm thinking of your first suggestion, which I'm actually starting to think is kind of brilliant. Because, I mean, imagine you're John Horgan. You might have to take a minute to put yourself in that headspace, but there's going to be some tough decisions in the coming weeks and months and well, he hopes years. Having someone there who can kind of be first of all, you're doing two things. Yeah, you could. Well, it was a Gordon Campbell idea, but you're kind of the NDP are. We don't talk about this much now because obviously we're setting politics aside. But the elections next year, and the NDP have fewer seats than their chief rivals and receive fewer votes, and so they need to gain seats to stay in power. I don't think they could do anything smarter than by looking like they are consciously reaching across the aisle. And it doesn't have to be Gordon Campbell, but I like that idea. And saying, look, we're going to take the best ideas from everyone. Are they doing that? We are the new center is what the kind of the unconscious message you'd be putting there. And I don't think you'd be, from their point of view, rehabilitating Gordon Campbell or anything like that. You're really just saying, hey, look, we are listening to everyone. And your point about having navigated through the 2008 recession is very well taken, because I mean that is very real and direct, applicable experience.
Yeah, no, we'll see. I mean, like, they'll never do it, but it's just one of those evil ideas that I had at this moment, and I think you match it up with a Glenn Clark or a Dan Miller or someone.
Yeah, of course, just to make it more palatable. But oh my God, what I would pay to see the expression on Jeff Megg's face if you pitched that in that meeting.
Yes, well, and the funny thing is, like, it would be very difficult then to go back and eviscerate the BC Liberals for 16 years, right? Like,
it's true.
So you're actually taking, if Gordon Campbell did it, you're taking a bullet out of their gun.
It's true, but they're going to have to pivot away from that eventually anyway. Yeah. I mean, they've had 4 years, and will have, we hope, navigated us out of this. So yes. I hope they can move away from what happened in 2002.
Yes, I would hope so. All right, well, that's all I have to say. I got nothing else. I've given you all I have. So.
We'll do this again in a week. And it sounds like for the foreseeable future, from Orca World Headquarters, aka my dining room table, and what looks like a very well acquitted home office. Yes,
I share it with my wife, who graciously stepped out, not wanting to hear my crushing morosity.
I enjoyed her cameo.
I'll try to be more cheerful next week. I'll try. I swear.
But you know what? We're all gonna have peaks and valleys as we go through this. I certainly had a valley last week. I can tell you that. But it's a beautiful day. I hope to sit on my balcony at some point later. We'll see.
Bang a pot and or pan.
Exactly. In the meantime, I'm Maclean K. You can find us at the Orca on the main site on the web. You are at Jordan Bateman and at the Orca BC. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, and until next week, stay safe. Wash your hands.